welcome to the Serpent Temple Weekly Review. This week we're going to be making sounds that we're not supposed to make, and then I'm going to announce the albums we're going to review. We're going to be reviewing 3 albums. The first one is the 1973 album by Magma called Mëkanïk Dëstruktïĉዕ Kömmandöh. The second one is going to be by Igorrr, and that album is the 2017 release Sinusoid.
Savage Sinusoid.
There we go. There we go. I'm a big Igorrr fan, but I don't know anything about the album names, apparently. The third album is the 2021 release by Darkthrone called Eternal Hails. But let's start with Magma. What did you think of this, Floyd?
Oh, Jesus Christ. This is a weird fucking album. It's really, really out there. So, I mean, there's a few facts about this album I found were really cool. So, you've got, firstly, it's produced by Giorgio Kamelski, who is the owner of the Crawdaddy bar, where the Rolling Stones were the in-house band.
Oh, damn.
So, I thought it was quite a cool fact.
Yeah.
I've always been more of a Rolling Stones than a Beatles fan myself.
I like both.
Yeah.
I think I like Stones marginally more.
Yeah. So I've never been a massive fan of both, but it's neither here nor there. And just so they've got I'm going to attempt to pronounce this sound that they've cultivated and created here, which is referred to as Zeuhl, which I believe I read online on Wikipedia, the fucking be-all and end-all of facts.
Yes.
And information. That's how it's pronounced. But yeah, like I have said this so many times every time we review an album from the 70s or early 70s, whatever, but this must have blown so many minds when this came out at this time. Like, I can't imagine how anybody could have listened to this. There's one track in particular, which musically, it's quite a simple track.
Yeah.
So it is Nabir Gudat, which I think was the 6th track on the album.
Indeed. It's on this... I've got it as side 2, track 2.
Oh, I forgot, yeah, this is back in the days where there was sides on albums. Yeah. That was when you had to turn things over to get more music. That's such an alien concept now.
Can you imagine the
You
effort?
couldn't fit music onto something so big. You had to use both sides, whereas now you've got a tiny chip that can house all the music in the world. But so this is quite like there's a lot of jazz influence on this album, which I thought was kind of cool. Like, I can hear some Coltrane-isms in a lot of the music, which I thought was super cool. And I think this particular track that I'm referring to, and this has got to be one of the earliest examples, I think, of some seriously harsh vocals being used, because this track has some actual proper DSBM style frenzied screams. I mean, the vocals are quite extreme on the album anyway, because it's quite histrionic a lot of the time. There's a lot of operatic vocals, both male and female, that are just kind of working in harmony and just kind of accentuating the already quite bizarre music. But I think there was something really cool about this track in the way that it's quite just a normal, like a lulling, jazzy beat, this track, but then you had all this really ridiculous vocals over the top of it. So I thought it was quite a jarring mix, but I actually really enjoyed it. Actually really reminds me of, I think I might mention this band on the podcast before, but a German band called Bethlehem, who founded the dark metal genre, which is like an offshoot of black metal, but they have similarly very histrionic and extreme vocals. But overall, the entire album I thought was just fantastic, actually. I really love weird shit, like I was saying before, and this definitely tickles and satiates that weird part of my brain.
I'm really happy you like this, because I was worried I'd suggest it and you'd be like, the fuck is this shit?
Yeah, do you know what? I think I went through a phase, and it's funny that we're actually reviewing Igorrr today as well, because I think around about the early 2010s, I went through a phase of just saying, you know what? I've got fast internet. Let me find as much weird shit as I can. The Pandora's box is open, and I think I kind of fucking peaked when I discovered that album. I might have mentioned this before. Stalaghh, Stallaghh, I think.
Oh, I think you sent me the YouTube video.
But yeah, it's an album called Project Misanthropia.
Yeah.
And it's all the vocals are samples of actual legit screams from a mental ward. Yes. And I was like, well, nothing's ever going to be weirder and more unsettling and fucked up than this. So this is the apex. So this album wasn't too weird.
Good.
But and there's some parts I really enjoyed. I really like the first track. It might even be my favorite track on the album. And it's also worth mentioning that they've created their own language.
Indeed.
For the majority of the lyrics and song titles, which is referred to as Kabayan.
Indeed it is.
Which is a term meaning celestial. And it's I think, at some point, one member of the band, presumably Christian Vander, who I think is the mastermind behind the project, he said it's meant the name of the language is meant to be kind of percussive and vibratory. So, and I think that's definitely reflected in the music, because a lot of the vocals are very percussive and quite stabby at times in terms of how they, kind of flow in and out of the music.
Definitely. Yeah, I heard it described as a language of the heart, where the meaning is more in the sound as opposed to the so-called words themselves. And there's only one known translation that was officially released by the band that was with the first pressing of this album, this particular one, which isn't their first album that they wrote. But since then, they've been like very secretive about. They've kind of given some unofficial translations and some like semi-official translations, but their later works they didn't say what stuff meant, so people kind of have to guess.
Have you listened to their earlier albums?
Bits and pieces. I've been listening to them for a long time, but this is usually the album I go to.
Yeah, because it's. I think I remember reading somewhere that there was like a trilogy of albums, because it's like a space opera of sorts.
I think they had. I think it's maybe a bit more than a trilogy. I think they had quite a few. Was it like? Did I write this down? But it's like a huge saga. It's literally like a space epic saga with this overarching storyline. I don't know if you read about the actual storyline. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, it was quite overwhelming with everything with the made-up language and being yelled at and screamed at your ears while this weird proggy, jazzy music is playing. But I think I did read somewhere that this album is covering the... I think it's leaving one of the planets. Yeah,
so basically the majority of their albums, apart from I think their last 3 or 4, maybe around that, basically chronicle like a race leaving their planet, finding a new one, settling down, and then finding like more settlers arrive at the planet, and they kind of have to like work things out, and then people from Earth come and beg them to come back and help save Earth, basically. So a small group of them go to Earth, and they talk to the Earth people about this planet that they're on and how things work there on, I think it's like Kabaya. And they're like, they focus on like spiritual cleansing, to quote, which is a bit of a weird word for me, but it's kind of that kind of vibe. The Earth people are like, nah, I'm going to put you in prison now. Yeah. So they get imprisoned on Earth, and they manage to, the spaceship gets impounded, which is such a weird thing to read. It's like, oh, you got to pay a fine.
Just imagine a tow truck coming and picking up a fucking spaceship.
Like a big clamp. But yeah, they manage to send out like a cry for help to their home planet. So they come and rescue them. But the people, the handful of people that they apparently spent time with on Earth remember the lessons that they gave them. So some people start to pass down the message they sent, and then generations later, eventually Earth kind of gets the memo and starts like doing it all good and stuff. Yeah. But yeah, I think the overarching theme is like this, space refugees and colonization and things like that.
Yeah, that's pretty wild, man. I think probably around that time. When did the first Star Wars film come out? I'm a total noob. I have never seen Star Wars.
I can't fucking remember.
It was 70s, right? Late 70s?
Maybe?
Mid?
I don't know. It was bigger in the 80s, was it?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
I feel like sci-fi was like quite a prominent thing around about that time.
Sci-fi was huge, I think, after 2001: A Space Odyssey, which I think was like, 71? Let me Google this, because I could just be full of shit.
Pull that shit up.
Pull it up. 2001: A Space Odyssey, released it's 1968. I was a few years off.
That was good.
Yeah, I mean, that was like the Kubrick years. Man, that film is
remind
amazing.
me, was that before or after he helped film the moon landing?
Moon landing was in the 60s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Moon landing. Was that 65, 66?
Oh, God.
59. Damn, I can't believe I didn't know that. Wow, 59. That's just blown my mind. I'm sorry. I've just realized that yeah, I mean, I guess it makes sense that people are just having joyrides in space now. We did that like, oh my God, I'm having an existential crisis on this podcast.
Allegedly did it. No, I'm joking. I'm just fucking. No,
we filmed the first one. And,
yeah, don't say that in front of, I think it was Buzz Aldrin, who I think he makes a habit of punching people that question him to his face.
Bless him.
Yeah.
Bless his heart. I love that guy. That's awesome. But yeah, I think this particular album is about like a prophet on Kabaya who I completely forgotten what's going on in this particular album, but basically he's like saying stuff to be like, you guys have got to like sort your shit out spiritually or you're fucked. And there's this like huge army marching against him, and eventually like he turns the army in his favor so that the chorus starts to favor his voice. He's got like a cool name. I think I found it potentially. So in this album, his message is to the people of Earth that their only salvation from an ultimate and certain doom is through self-purification and communication with the divine spirit of the supreme being, the Krön Korman. With this album, you're introduced to the story of Teas Hamtak, literal translation, Time of Hatred. That's pretty metal. That's a good band name. For real, that's a real good band name for some people out there who may be looking for one right now. So concerning the period of time of Earth between the Kabayan visit, where they get like abducted, and the celestial march for enlightenment led by Neber Gudat, which concludes this album. Damn. So there you go. So I guess it's like an album about prophecy and rejection.
Yeah, it's that's some cool shit. That's my 2 cents there. Some cool shit. What did you think of the music on this album? Because you've had a bit more time to digest this than I have. I've had a few days, so it's.
I've been living with this album for like over a decade now. I just fucking love this band. The musical aspects are just fantastic. The language basically allows for greater musical expression because you're not constrained by language is designed mostly to be spoken. Yeah. So the way we speak language isn't always as effective when it's sung. Whereas this is the other way around. This language was designed to be sung, which I think is really fascinating because linguistically that's like, I've not encountered anything like that before. And it is so expressive. Like you don't really need to read lyrics to know what's going on in the album. Even if you don't know like the storyline, you can really feel the urgency and the like marching and ominous nature of things. And then like these beautiful choruses, like literally like, as you say, vocally, really interesting. You've got a lot of really operatic stuff, sometimes like very Italian style, very Baroque style, and then it's like also really industrial as well. Yeah. And you've got these vocals that are so very similar to Igorrr in that they're like very operatic, but they're very distorted at the same time. They like teeter on distortion, which technically is like very difficult to do in that kind of register. And then you have mostly female vocals or soprano, let's say soprano, where it's doing that and then it goes into screaming, which is for 1973 pretty fucking like ahead of its time.
Yeah, I can imagine this would have turned off a lot of people when they heard it. That's interesting, like the point you make about language, and I think and words. I think totally I could see how that could be so restrictive at times, because we've talked multiple times about how you have to change your vowel sounds to pronounce a word.
Yeah, to project really well when you're singing, yeah. So
if you take that away and just make the noise or the sounds that you want to make and get your message across that way, which it seems as though that's what this language is allowing them to do through their music. So, and I think that's just can be so much more impactful sometimes. I think it's important to have words and language sometimes because it's a reference point for a lot of people in terms of relating to music. I think more so outside of the realms of sort of like guitar-based music, more like pop music, and even hip-hop, for example. Like, that's all about connecting to the lyrics and the lyricism. And I enjoy good lyricism, but I also equally enjoy people making the weirdest noises imaginable.
It's like the Celtic frost oohing of the 70s, and that has those. It's funny because like we take the piss out of it, but it's the same kind of deal. Like he doesn't need to use language. He's communicating this like sense through that guttural caveman-y sound, right? And then you've got like the yeahs of Caius and Metallica, which, you know, doesn't mean anything apart from like the feeling that it conveys, which I think is funny. And I really like that this is like coming from a pure is such a weird word to use in this context, coming from a place where the language has no prior meaning. So it's like completely new. It's like a new sound in a new context where there's like nothing else. There's no other like linguistic interconnection necessarily, although I guess there is, because the language is a mixture of Slavic and Germanic languages. So there's that too.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like the German, like the Germanic aspects, I can hear straight away. Like I was surprised to hear that they were from France. Like at first, I actually looked at the song titles before I realized that they weren't actually German words at first. And I was like, oh, this group's German, or at least writing the music in German. Before I realized, oh no, wait, this is some whole other shit.
Some whole other shit.
And you missed out. Of course, you were talking about like kind of vocal kind of tics, for lack of a better term. And you missed out David Draymond.
Of course.
With the ooh, wah,
I just thought he was sick. That's all. Sorry.
Yeah. I remember watching. I think it was you know, those Loudwire fact or fiction videos.
Yeah.
I went through a phase where I was just like binge watching them. And I think on Wikipedia at one point it said that he got that noise and he was inspired by monkey noises at like some Chicago zoo somewhere. And he was just like, no, that's not the fucking case. No.
Didn't it just like come out of him when he was recording it?
That's basically what he said. Yeah, he just said what felt right at the time. So you know.
And sometimes that is just what feels right.
Yeah, and it's the noise of a generation.
It's the noise I will hear echoing in my mind as the life slowly ebbs out of my body in about 50 to 100 years' time. So regarding Magma, it's really interesting. It's an existential one today.
50 to 100, that's optimistic.
I know, right? It's more like 5 days to 10. But yeah, Christian Vander is a really interesting figure as well. He kind of formed Magma after the death of John Coltrane because he wanted to fill in the void in like, to refer to his words, left by the death of Coltrane, which is...
That's so cool. And I'm actually kind of glad that I picked up on the Coltrane-isms because I could totally hear it.
Yeah.
That's only through my partner's dad is obsessed with Coltrane, so whenever I used to stay over,
I love Coltrane.
I would hear his music permeate in my dreamscapes. I just think, what the fuck is going on? I woke up as I listened to Coltrane again.
I actually have Coltrane on vinyl to sound like I have more vinyl than I actually have because I only have like 20. But yeah, I really like his work. Wow. And interestingly, people who've been inspired by Magma, and this keeps coming up and surprising me, Michael Ackerfeld of Opeth.
There he goes, the big Mike.
Every time I suggest a 70s album and I look at the Wikipedia, also influences Michael Ackerfeld, and I'm like, oh, I have the exact same taste apparently.
Maybe you're Michael Ackerfeld from a different multiverse.
I'm Michael Nina Felt. Yes, very funny.
Or to go by your naming strategy for your Pokemon, Nina Felt.
One day I'm just gonna that's all the only word I'll say. I'll just invent a new language and I won't tell anyone.
Like Hodor, yeah.
Nina D's nuts.
Oh. Hello.
Hello, I'm so funny. Shem just sent me a message saying this is now a Michael Ackerfeld podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I love Opeth. I'm not gonna. We need to do an Opeth special one day because I feel like it's too much to cover Opeth.
Yeah.
One Opeth album without talking about all the other shit that they've done.
That'll be fun.
A few bands like Opeth, Carcass, Enslaved,
Akakoka,
of course.
This is also an Akakoka podcast, to be fair, anyway.
Yeah. See, that was a problem, I think, when we were reviewing Akakoka and Death. I kept going back to previous albums. Thinking,
Right.
fuck, I just can't talk about one album. It's impossible.
It's true.
One thing I kind of picked up on, I read a few reviews for this album, and a lot of people were comparing it to Carl Orff's Carmina Burana, yeah.
Have you? I love that piece of music.
See, I've only listened to, and obviously through popular culture, the O Fortuna, that's going to sound so shit on mic.
These are wonderful mics. You'll sound great.
Yeah. But, and I totally, because obviously there's, when you listen to this album, you could totally hear that there's some real, influence from, there's a lot of choral work and a lot of composer-esque elements. And, it was once I was reading the reviews and saw that people were making that comparison, I was like, yeah, the penny dropped in my head as well. So I could totally hear where they're getting that from.
It's a total rock opera. This reminds me a lot of like really kind of psychedelic, progressive cartoons and films at the time. I don't know if there was this like cartoon. I can't remember the full name. It was like called Ulysses something, and it was literally these guys like on a spaceship going through space, and like they had to repopulate. They were trying to find a planet to repopulate, and they were all like Greek gods and shit. It's pretty fucking sick. It's really like heavy metal magazine style, like the actual magazine called Heavy Metal. Ulysses 31. That's the one. Yeah, I've got a graphic book of that.
Yeah, just that era had some really weird cartoons. There was another really weird cartoon that my dad used to talk about called Crystal Tips and Alistair. And it was a total, I think it was about like fucking this girl with a flying dog. And so it was totally like just watching like an acid trip. Like, it was wild.
That is pretty wild. I like that. I wish there was a way of like not doing acid, but having like a VR acid trip that you can just like watch on YouTube and be like, if you had an acid trip, this is what would happen. And you could just like program it.
Funny you say that. I've definitely mentioned part of this before, but my mum took me to this festival she used to go to in when we were young called the Mind. Shem's gone already. It's called the Mind, Body and Spirit Festival, and they had the simulation machine which would simulate a near-death experience.
Oh my god!
And that's what gave me my first taste of existential dread. Oh my god! That was pretty wild. Like it was pretty trippy, and I was maybe about 8 or 9.
What the fuck?
And it was, that was some wild shit. So that was kind of like something akin to a VR acid trip. She also had this VHS tape. I can't remember what it was called. It was Brain something, like Brain Warp or some weird shit. And it was just loads of psychedelic images. But I think it was a VHS of sort of digital effects created just to purely accompany those taking LSD. And that was wild as well.
Damn. I mean, wow. The first time I ever felt existential dread and realized I was going to die and never like experience life for an eternity was when I watched the Hercules Disney movie at the age of 5.
I've not seen the Hercules Disney film, but it's...
Spoiler alert, it is very good. I made my mum take me to the cinema to watch it 5 times because I definitely wasn't autistic. And basically, at the end of the film... I think like the lady, I can't remember her name, she like dies and you see her soul being like swept down into the underworld in this like whirlpool of souls, and Hades is like ha ha ha, and Hercules is like, I'll never see my love again. You're like, wait, people die? And I remember going home and like sitting in my room and crying and seeing this like swirling whirlpool of souls in my mind and realizing that like when I close my eyes that's what death will be, but forever. And my mum walks in and she's like, why are you crying? And I was like, I'm gonna die. It was great.
That was Watership Down for me. That film was fucking traumatizing.
Animals of Farthing Wood.
Yeah, that was like a spiritual successor to Watership Down. There was actually a scene in that really freaked me out as a child, and it was so simple. It was so long ago. Well, I'm talking literally 3 decades ago. But it was there was a bit where they were running from this like evil fucking, it might have been a fox or some form of fucking evil animal, and it just popped up out of nowhere, a bit like a jump scare, and it freaked the shit out of me.
Oh my god!
I couldn't watch it again after that because it freaked me out so much.
You know, some of the scariest kids' TV was Pingu.
Pingu was great.
Yeah, I love Pingu. Honestly, I adore Pingu. And but there was one episode where Pingu, I think, has like a nightmare. And like Pingu's bed starts walking and like growing and then like shrinking, and then a gigantic seal emerges from like nowhere and is like looking down on Pingu as Pingu like flees through the tundra.
I do not remember that episode. Pingu might have been influenced by Magma because they were speaking their own made-up language as well. It's true. Fucking Newtonese.
And they literally are saying like mag all the time.
Yeah. The episode of Pingu I remember is the one where he gets drunk and pisses on the floor. That was just gold. That was some good shit.
Oh, Pingu. I really love Pingu's mum and like the little Pingu kid with its cute little eyelashes.
So cute. Yeah, the little baby penguin. Yeah. No.
Pingu. That's great. So, Magma is fantastic. Christian Vander is actually adopted by a French jazz musician.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so I think that's really interesting. He basically grew up with a famous French jazz musician. And I guess that was a huge influence on his future work and his art. He also had a project after this where he like went more into like more modern music and wasn't as experimental, but called The Offering. I haven't listened to that one though, so I guess I should check it out after this. But it's interesting. I think one thing I'll also note is on this album they had a stage manager. when they were recording it in the
Oh.
recording liner, which is pretty cool. And they have obviously a lot of vocalists. They have about 6 vocalists. They have organ, percussion, multiple organ players, multiple brass players, flute players, clarinet, and about 5 engineers as well.
Yeah, it's I heard a lot of there was some quite interesting and cool percussion going on. Sounded like a glockenspiel at times, or a xylophone or a glockenspiel, whichever one it was, but it sounded like some sort of tuned percussion instrument.
Yeah. There's so much going on. It's like it's not chaotic. That single I sent you, the black metal single for the
Mistras,
the side project of Spectral Law.
Spectral Law, got it right. That's the first time you ever got us. Yeah, Spectral Law. Yeah.
That's the first and only. But like that was like chaotic, whereas this is like similarly busy, but also it's not chaotic. It's very ordered, and it's like a battle between the prophet and the people, and eventually the people like switch to his side. So the chorus is like it's his space chorus, whereas at the beginning it's like a war of ideas.
Do you know, I think that's a very good point. I think that's probably largely helped by the fact they've got obviously Christian Vander does the drums. I've got listed here as both vocals, organs, and percussion. And you got Yannick Top, who I think was a bass player for a prolonged period of time, who's one of the mainstay members of the band. And the rhythm section in this is great. Like some of the bass work and drum work is fantastic, and I think does a good job of holding it together. And I think, when you've got something so chaotic, you need that tight rhythm section, that glue to hold it together, because otherwise it just becomes an absolute fucking mess.
Totally.
One of my favorite points in the album, I want to mention real quick, which I was actually going to say earlier, but I just completely went off tangent, was on the first track, and I'm not even going to try and butcher the name of it.
I can give it a go because I love trying.
Go on.
It's Hertz for den Stecken West. I think it's just loads of hats on things and dots.
But so there's a moment, I'd say from about 6:45 to about 7.5 minutes in, that is really... See, I love horns, right? And I think they're one of the most ominous sounding instruments ever. And when they're used properly, it could just be such sinister sounding. And they had this section which sounded like... I mean, keep it in mind, listen to this in 1973 would have been just absolutely fucking unreal. But then it just transitioned into like this really happy groove that sounded a bit like Rush. I was just like, what the fuck has gone on in this album? Just absolutely mental. There's so many moments in it that just really threw me for a loop. Like the aforementioned, like just the vocal histrionics of that track, that later track in the bar, Gudat. And I really liked the closer to the album as well. There's some really great piano work on it, and just some really anthemic use of sort of choral vocal patterns and stuff. It's just wild. Just need to listen to this some more though, just to fully digest it, because it's so much to take in. Like I've listened to the album twice, and second time it was definitely a lot easier to digest because I knew what was coming. Because at first listen, I was just like, okay, this is pretty wild. And it's a weird fucking week this week. So we've got Igorrr coming up as well, which is similarly chaotic and fucking wild.
Definitely.
But in a more modern sense.
This is definitely Igorrr was 100% very heavily inspired by this band. Right. Yeah, so, a lot of bands are. And there's still, as a genre of Zeuhl, I'm probably mispronouncing it, but the band Zeuhl, and a bunch of other bands as well. Some Japanese bands, a lot of French bands, they're all inspired by this, and there's a full-on genre of other bands have sung in this language as well.
I mean, you're an influential band when you've got your own genre.
Yeah.
Obviously, shout out to Meshuggah and Gent.
They're so happy about that.
But it's funny, you mentioned Zeuhl, so it's not the American metalcore band Zeuhl, it's a Japanese band called Zeuhl.
That's the Zeuhl that I knew, and when everyone was talking about the American Zeuhl, I thought they were talking about the Japanese Zeuhl.
Yeah, so I was the opposite, because I saw Zeuhl, and I was just like, Zeuhl! I was like... But it was the, as you said, the other one.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, because I can hear some kind of Japanese-style vocal stuff going on in this album. And when I first heard it, I think I first heard it and I didn't see the song names. I think I just found it on YouTube. I thought it was a Japanese band.
Yeah. Because
I'm pretty sure I was probably in like an Osamu Kitajima role, and I saw this and I was like, what's that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you ever listen, you must have listened to Melt Banana before and stuff, right?
Pretty sure I have. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some facets of the Japanese scene are just absolutely bonkers as well.
Yeah.
They're great at creating some absolutely wild shit.
Absolutely. I mean, there's some Ben Zuyten moments on this for sure as well.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. That's such a good album. I love Ben Zuyten.
I'm glad you do.
bit Tom G. Warrior-esque.
You just created your own
My own genre. It's called Hua.
You heard it here first. Birth of a genre. So shall we move on to Igorr's
Let's do it.
Savage Sinusoid?
So, had you listened to this album previously prior to?
Not this one. I found Igorrr in like 2011, 2012, I think, around then, because I had a huge like gent phase, and like I really loved it. I was listening to this and a band called Gaslamp Killer a lot, which is like similar. They used a lot of samples back then. Igorrr was using more samples as well, and I just love that chaos. Like, have you listened to Venetian Snares?
I was gonna bring up Venetian Snares. Yeah. It's I've got a friend. Shout out to Rob, who he attends a lot of like fucking there's a festival in the Czech Republic, or Czechia now as it's now known. It's changed 3 times in my lifetime, but it's that's dedicated to electronic music. But within that, you know, it's similar to metal. Electronic music's got a vast amount of subgenres, and one of them is like glitch music and breakcore, which is like something I think Igorrr is quite influenced by. And and he turned me on to Venetian Snares, and I was just like, yeah, this is some good shit. I could get behind this. If there was one type of electronic music I can get behind, it's this sort of weird and quite intense stuff. Yeah,
I really like that they all kind of have the same vibe, and that had like a summer. Like a few years really where I listened to, I think I was at uni, so this kind of music is great for when you're like trying to type an essay, because it shocks you back into like
I can't sleep to this shit.
Yeah. And also like you'd always go on like Wikipedia holes, and then you'd like some crazy thing would happen in music. You're like, oh shit, I'm writing an essay. I have to stop reading about like frogs in 1969 and like the forest of New Guinea. But yeah, like this, and I listened to loads of Israeli dubstep. I don't know why, but like Israeli dubstep is really good. Like
I need to listen to Israeli dubstep now.
It's great. Infected Mushroom and Shekel were just like great bands at that time. I haven't, but the thing is, like after that, I just didn't listen to them again, because listening to that kind of music just reminded me of being at uni and doing essays.
Yeah, that's fair.
But they're fantastic bands, and Igorr's one of them. And they always play Hellfest, and I've never seen them play, even though I've been to 7. They always clashed with someone.
Well, I know that they've added some. Well, say this is like a recent thing, because they've just lost some live members, but they added some live members. I think it was after this album where they decided to take the live aspect of the music a bit more seriously and had like somewhat of a touring band. And I've got a friend who saw them live and said it was one of the best gigs he's ever seen. So it was absolutely outstanding.
Fantastic. I think they played with Zeuhl and no?
Yeah, it was there was a really weird bill. I think it was Igorrr, Zeuhl, and also Author and Punisher.
I've never listened to Author and Punisher.
So Author and Punisher are really fucking interesting. It's a Dutch one-man industrial project. So he's got this instrument he's created by himself. It looks a bit like... Oh, the
weird knife piano. No, he saws it.
Yeah, it's like something out of like some fucking demented like woodwork. I don't know why I'm using the American term, but like a woodwork fucking... classroom.
Carpentry thing.
Yeah.
I know. I've seen pictures of it, and there's like sparks flying everywhere, right?
Yeah.
That's cool.
But so it was meant to be those 3 touring. I'm just like, that is a fucking wild bill.
They must be like so tired at the end. Like going back to their tour buses after playing that crazy music, they probably have to listen to like, I don't know, like chill wave.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or Nightcore.
Yeah.
I don't know, Nightcore.
Nightcore.
I just learned about Nightcore like a few months ago.
I thought you made it up. I feel like, I don't know, dusk.
Oh, do you know what Nightcore is?
No.
Nightcore is like really, well, from what I've gathered anyway, I could be way off, so I apologize to any ardent fucking Nightcore fans out there.
No, we're listening.
But it's basically like, do you remember there was that phase in the early 2000s where they took dance music and they speeded it up with those chipmunk style vocals?
Yeah.
I think Nightcore is like basically the same with like dubstep and drum and bass, where they speed it up.
Oh no.
And it's got that chipmunk style, like super, and it's just...
That's upsetting.
It's horrific.
That's so upsetting. Yeah. Why? So that implies that daycore is that, but really slow.
Yeah.
Damn.
I think so.
Okay.
There you go.
Right.
I'll ask Rob. He'll probably know.
Man, music's incredible with our crazy genres.
But yeah, so Igorrr is a project by Gauthier Serre, I think would be close.
Gauthier Serre.
Gauthier, yeah.
I'm making that up. I don't speak French very well. Yeah.
But I actually, before we get into this album, I actually wanted to cover a couple of his other projects, which as I was saying, I went through a phase about in the 2010s where I was just trying to discover some weird shit, which is when Igorrr first came onto my radar. So it would have been about 2012 when they dropped the Hallelujah album, which is quite similar to this album. I feel it's got a lot of... I feel like this is a more refined version of what he was trying to do.
That's how I felt, because that's like probably the first and last album I listened to.
Yeah.
And then coming back to this, I was like, oh, of course, this is like coming home to Igorrr, but it's like even better.
Yeah. It's just much more... I don't know if accessible is the right word. Digestible, I would say.
Yeah.
But some of his other projects are wild. So one of the other guys in the band, one of the main vocalists, Laurent Lenoir, is in a project. It's, I don't know how to pronounce, but it's OXXO space XOOX, which is also the fictional language that a lot of Igorr's music, a lot of the lyrics in Igorr's music is sung or screamed in as well.
I thought it was a hugs and kisses kind of deal, sorry.
Yeah, yeah, that's what it looks like. They've got little umlauts on it as well.
Oh, the umlauts make it not hugs and kisses anymore, yeah.
But yeah, that's like, if it's really interesting because I feel like Igorr's two projects are like opposite ends of the spectrum of what Igorrr tries to achieve. Like this project, OXXO, XOOX, that's a catchy name, is it's like really like kind of gothic and doomy. Like there's still a little bit of electronic kind of like digital effects being used, but it's far more like based in sort of like gothic metal, and it's quite a good project actually. They've got 3 albums that are really good, and he was involved in another project called Hurka, which are the other end of the spectrum. So it's like a proper death metal grindcore album mixed with like breakcore and like really glitchy digital effects.
Like
and
French Berserker.
Yeah, literally, yeah, that's a very good analogy. Kind of like a French Berserker. Whereas I feel like Igorrr is kind of like somewhere in the middle of those two projects. And but yeah, it's worth checking out. If you like Igorrr and stuff, I would check out other projects he's been involved in because there's some good shit there.
Awesome. I'm going to definitely check those out. They sound intriguing as hell.
But this album in particular, I like. It's this is one of the tracks on the album. The second track, Iud, I-E-U-D, which is an anagram for the French word for God.
Indeed, mon Dieu.
Is one of those videos that was super popular on a lot of reaction channels for a while because it's got quite a typically bizarre music video to accompany it. So it was one of those tracks that gained a lot of headway and I think introduced a lot of people to Igorrr.
Igorrr.
Sounds like Igorrr crossover there. But it's but the music video for that track is great. But I think this track is probably the best representation of what the sound is because I think it's got a lot of the elements that are quite prominent on this album. But kind of amalgamated into one quite well-crafted track. Like you've got super operatic and...
It's got harpsichord.
Yeah, it's... one of the things I found really interesting on this album is on their personnel list, they've got somebody listed as playing the chicken. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw that. It's called like, what, George or something?
Yeah.
Or Patrick. That's it, Patrick on the chicken.
So there's a moment in this track where I think you hear the chicken, and I think it's on the next track afterwards, Humus, where... just before the track goes into a little 8-bit section, which is something they've explored on their last album as well. They've got a track on the last album, if you haven't heard it, which has Corpse Grinder from Cannibal Corpse on the vocals.
I was going to say, it's got Travis from Cattle Decap as well.
It's got Travis from Cattle Decap, who is, in my opinion, one of the best death metal vocalists. He has got an insane range and can produce some crazy sounds.
He sure can. But
you do hear the chicken quite clearly at the end of that track, Humus, before it goes into transitions into the 8-bit section. But God, I mean, I'm literally like the album at the moment. I'm just all over the shop talking about different aspects of it because it's just there's a lot to take in with this album.
Yeah, you've also got Morten Iversen, who's the live guitarist of Gorgoroth, Godseed, Mayhem, and 1349.
Yeah, so he is also the current, if I'm not mistaken, the current guitarist of Mayhem as well. So he's got a stage name Teloch.
Indeed. I really liked the first few tracks in particular a lot. The first one reminded me a lot of Repo the Genetic Opera. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
No, never.
It's got Paris Hilton in it and some real bangers. Also Anthony Head from
Buffy
and a few other things. He's fantastic. He's like one of the main characters and he's got a great voice. I dig him a lot. It's very cheesy, but there's like bits of it that really sound like this track. I really love the writing of this album. Is like so clever. It's like constantly developing melodies and lines. And then you've got like the harpsichord intro, and the way they're manipulating the harpsichord is like really interesting too, and it's different on every track. And then it comes back in on the bridge, and it's not just harpsichord alone, where a lot of bands will just have like, oh, cool instrument on its own, and we don't really know how to fit everything in around it. But then it comes back, and the guitar's playing around it, and they're like intertwining really well. And it's same with all the rhythms and the melodies are always doing different things, but they're interacting like in a very clever way. I love how complex that is. It's like super like bless you.
I was trying to save that off for the longest time.
Floyd on the sneeze. Yeah, it's like super complex, and I really love this like classically trained shit at the same time. And then you've got like calliope kind of sounds, and the accordion that's like, I'm sure a shout out to Jan Tiersen, who's like a very famous French composer who did the soundtrack for Amélie.
Oh, okay.
I really love that soundtrack. Cool. It's amazing. Jan Tiersen's music is fantastic. And yeah, that accordion style, but then it's like, then you have the Devon Townsend scream, which I feel is like very similar to his voice and the way they've like produced his voice. And you've got like a saxophone playing like a kind of Romany gypsy style melody you'd normally hear on a violin, which is like super confusing to the ear, but in like a cool way. And then you've got like Sephardi Moroccan style like melodies on that too. So yeah, I just really like that. And then you've got like Opus Brain is really Italian. There's like Italian opera style, and you've got the soprano, which is like very Magma-esque, where like it's going into like lingua ignota style distortion. Yeah. And it's like really, really well controlled, like fantastic singing. Like the support on the voice is really good here, and the way the distortion's like always teetering on the edge, and then you finally get the screaming is so good. It's really, really cool to hear that in an operatic context.
Yeah. It's, very, very well said. It's, I totally like how they're using such a wide array of instruments and combining it in ways that haven't really been explored. Like we said with the harpsichord, it's like there's times we've got like furious double bass pedals going off at the same time. And it's a good job trying to contain yourself there while you're mid-drinking water as well. It's half expecting you to spit out, Triple H style.
Not on the mics, hell no.
Yeah. But it's just so much wild shit going on in this album. And, and like a similar point as to what I was making with the Magma album, it would be so easy for this just to be a mess and not cohesive. Yeah. But I think it's a real testament to the songwriting and the compositions of the tracks that it's still... So, like I said, not accessible, digestible is what I would say. Like, I think there's enough elements in this album to attract a lot of people. Like, they're casting a wide net. I think as bonkers and as wild as it sounds, I think it has, Igorrr as a project has such a wide appeal to various fans, whether it be fans of electronic music, obviously heavy metal. Like, there's some straight up death metal riffs in here. There's some straight up black metal tremolo riffs in here. Like, there's so many elements from so many different genres, which you've touched upon as well. Like, like there's a big Balkan influence as well. Like, it's, like I said, it's just a lot of folk influences, just absolutely just wild.
I like that how that's embodied on the album cover. It's like a huge ball of fists just punching each other. Yeah. And that's the album cover, and it's by an artist called Metastasis. So if anyone wants to see it, you can Google that. But yeah, I think that really embodies the kind of clash, but also coexistence of all these different styles. And I think it sounds so fucking cool. I really like that. I know that Sarah, he cited a troupe of Romanian musicians called Taraf de Haiducs as one of his inspirations for this album, as well as Cannibal Corpse and Aphex Twin. Yeah,
you could 100% hear... God, it's catching.
Sorry.
How dare you interrupt my point? But, you could definitely hear the Cannibal Corpse influences. Like, some of the more mid-paced grooves are just total Cannibal Corpse worship in the best possible way. And I don't think Cannibal Corpse get enough credit for being a good death metal band, because I think, they're definitely one of the purveyors of that kind of problematic lyrical content of the earlier albums. But I think as times went on, they've actually been one of those bands that's kind of maintained relevance. And actually, some of their later work is some of their best work, I think. And it's weird to say they don't get enough credit, because they do, because they're like the most well-known death metal band. But I think what comes of that is there's a lot of people that don't give them the time of day for that reason. Oh, well, they're so well-known. Like, they're not as good as, like, say, this underground band here, or whatever. But no, yeah, it's I think it didn't surprise me that he actually got Corpse Grinder to guest on a track on the next album, because you listen to some of the heavier parts in this album and it's totally got that mid-paced, super groovy kind of like crunchiness that Cannibal Corpse is kind of known for.
The production is fantastic on this album. I cannot imagine how much of a headache this would have been to mix.
Jeez. Yeah, that would have been... It's just... Yeah, everything just sounds so crisp. Like what I said, it'd be so easy for this to sound like an absolute clusterfuck. But it sounds great.
Is it Winter Sun that are doing that thing where they crowdfunded like 20,000 euros for a sauna, and they're like, I can't make the album because there are too many tracks on the thing.
There's too many layers, apparently. So he said he had the best iPad or iMac. iPad?
It makes the whole album on an iPad.
Fucking, that is impressive. That's some fucking gore grind production there for doing your album on an iPad. But no, he had like the best like Mac computer, and it still couldn't handle the amount of layers in the tracks for Time 2, which a lot of Winter Sun fans are still waiting for. But hey, look, he's got a sauna, so his skin's healthy, his pores are clear, so
man, we
all
should
that
do a Serpent Temple crowdfunder for a fucking... Well, we have a Serpent Temple sauna. We're in it right now.
Yeah, it's fucking warm.
Yeah, I mean, we could just sell Serpent Temple sauna sweat in like small glass vials, and
yeah, not to be presumptuous, but I think yours will sell a hell of a lot quicker than mine.
Well, you never know. I'm not going to make any assumptions. I'm sure there's always a market for everything.
That's true.
It's true. Yeah, I love the Igorrr album covers so much, man. I love the album cover for Nostril. It's just like it's like a weird skin man stroking a poodle. Like he's wearing no clothes. Have you seen that album cover?
No, do you know, I'm not too familiar with that album.
Here you go. This one's even animated.
Oh shit, yeah. Was that the album before Hallelujah? Oh jeez, that really threw me. I didn't.
Well,
I know you said it was animated, but like until I saw it, I was like, well, that's really freaky.
Only like a tiny amount of it is animated,
Yeah.
and it's like kind of creepy because he looks like an unwashed bollock. And like,
God, that's wild.
I was trying to find out which member of the band had to leave. I forgot which one it is. Because I can't remember if it was like the drummer, someone had to leave, got fired because they were an anti-vaxxer. And they were like, we respect them, but they can't be in a band because they can't go on tour with us because they won't have a COVID passport, so they have to go.
Yeah,
and one of the singers left as well.
Well, that's the thing. Each country is going to have their own rules and regulations, right? So it's going to be impossible to travel without it, really. And it's, I still don't know what that landscape's going to look like, because I mean, it's fucking, there's so many elements that go into touring, right? It's
that and Brexit. I think UK is just like, no one's going to bother now.
Jeez, yeah. Even though apparently Devin Townsend's still flying in for his headline set at Bloodstock. Apparently,
they love Devin Townsend.
Yeah.
To be fair, yeah, bless him. I'm glad he's coming.
Devin's great. I love Devin.
He's a wholesome guy. He must be protected at all costs. But I have talked to some other bands recently, like good-sized non-European bands. Like, yeah, we're just not going to bother coming to the UK, because if you're doing a European tour and you're coming to the UK, the amount of stuff you're doing is just not worth it. You may as well just continue and do something else in Europe. So I think bands will probably come to the UK to do like an extensive tour, and there's not much reason to.
No.
At this, like, if you're a big band, you're probably going to make more money in Europe at this point.
Oh yeah, totally. It's because it's just so many uncertainties at the moment with the UK, and yeah, you're totally right. Like, I just don't think it's. I'm sure everybody wants gigs to come back, but I don't think there's going to be enough of a return for these bands to do it. Yeah. We're basically barely making any return anyway.
Right.
In a pre-COVID year. So, I mean, what's it going to be like now? So,
I mean, it's good that we have such a healthy underground scene here. I think we'll be okay in that respect, but I think there'll be a lot of fans who are used to non-UK bands who like tend to go to the bigger gigs and not to the more underground ones who might be at a loose end. Yeah. We might lose those people when it comes to the music scene. Yeah,
it's but you're totally right. It's the UK scene's looking good at the moment, and there's in one way that's why I'm quite excited about this year's Bloodstock, for example, which looks like it's 100% going ahead.
Yeah.
Because like it'd be great to see like Conjurer on the main stage. Conjurer being a band I've been following for a few years now. I've seen like make big strides, like to the point where you had to queue to watch them at Roadburn. They played one of the side stages connected to. Well, Roadburn's got such a weird setup, but there's like a few stages down the road from the two main stages, and then we had to queue for about 40 minutes just to get in. So we only caught like the last 20 minutes of the set.
Wow.
So, but they're great. I love Conjurer.
They won a Metal to the Masses, didn't they?
I think they did. Yeah.
They're one of those. It's like really impressive that they've gone from that to, having queues at Roadburn. That's amazing.
Yeah, I think they're a bit like Bloodshot Dawn in the sense that they've had a similar-ish trajectory. That started off with those sort of band v band show, and then kind of catapulted themselves with their technical proficiency.
Indeed, they did. Shout out to Bloodshot Dawn.
But back to Igorrr. So many tracks in this album I love. There's one track that I've just abbreviated to Apopath. It's got a really long name.
I tried. I was having fun pronouncing it the other day. Yeah, I don't think I had to practice a few times.
Have you got it?
I don't have it. No. I'm an idiot. But
yeah,
I'll do it off camera because it will just bore everyone else.
But that was definitely the heaviest track on the album, and it opens with the guitar tone actually sounds similar, and this will get a pop from Shem to early Korn stuff, and I was like, oh yeah. I mean, anything that sounds like early Korn is a win in my book. But it's and it's got some of the. Oh no, I don't think that track does have. No, it does have some guest vocals from Travis Ryan, who, as aforementioned, is an absolute beast of a death metal vocalist. And what I like about this album is you've got some tracks like that one, which are predominantly metal, that have small digital alterations and effects. And then you got another track, for example, the track is called Robert, for example, which is predominantly an electronic track that has just a smattering of guitars and instrumentation. So they've kind of flipped it there. So you've got some tracks that are predominantly instrument-based with the electronic elements, and then vice versa on some of the other tracks. So there's a lot of cool variation and different things going on.
That's a really astute observation. The main thing I felt listening to this was that, I don't know why, but I get this exhilaration from the music. There's a fantastic liberating sense of energy here, and I feel like Gautier really uses when I listen to a lot of electronic music, I feel like people are enjoying making stuff make cool sounds. Whereas with Gautier, I think he's really using the freedom that comes with using computers to manipulate music, and he's looking at it from that perspective as opposed to maybe, I don't know how he writes, but I just feel like he's not just thinking about a melody or not just thinking about a rhythm. He's got a 3-dimensional view of the music, and then he's applying that to the extra space that you get and the extra freedom you get with a computer, so that you're not limited by just having instruments, but you are in a way at the same time. So I just find it fascinating that he's got this part of his brain that can see music in that way. It's like he's got a 4-5 or something. I don't know. I
am totally 100% with you on that point, because there's one thing he does which I think is super cool, and I think he's only really started doing it with this album, where one of the big things in electronic music that people wait for is that kind of that big bass drop.
Yeah.
But he does this really cool thing where he does the bass drops, but they're kind of accentuated by the choral vocal bits, as well as and he does it. You hear it quite prominently in the second track, Eud, IEUD. And there's just certain parts, just before it breaks into almost an icy black metal riff, you have that big bass drop which leads into it. So I totally get what you're saying, because it's almost like he's using those elements to bolster the music and elevate it to something which hasn't really previously been done before. Because you take a band like Berserker, for example, their first album, which had a lot of even Gabba influence, which I think Gabba electronic music is a certain type of super fast electronic music at a certain BPM that's super fast, and but it was very that first Berserker album, I love it, but it's very jarring, it doesn't meld well, and that's what appeals to that's the part of the album that appeals to me, is the fact that it sounds so weird and jarring, whereas it doesn't here. It actually is quite cohesive, and as aforementioned, it bolsters the music and helps kind of elevate it.
I think it's actually really easy to listen to this album. This was definitely the easiest to listen to album of all the 3 pieces of music.
So. Definitely much easier to listen to than Hallelujah, the earlier album. And if anything, I think the later album was a bit more reserved than this one. It's a bit more. I need to listen to it again. I listened to it once, and I wasn't really paying full attention, so I'll give it another chance, because I think, as it currently stands, this is my favourite Igorrr album.
This is definitely my favourite so far as well. Yeah. I used to listen to them a fair amount. But yeah, of the albums this week as well, I think we've picked some real ones that if you'd never listened to these bands and you came in, you'd be like, the fuck is this shit?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Like it's like honestly, when I listen to Magma, I was just like, I can see a lot of people really hating this.
Yeah, right?
But it's just, but I love it that it's, and that's not a knock on the band at all. But it's like, you know, it's just so. And I'm talking about now. If people listen to it now, they'd be like, "The fuck is this shit?" Like, let alone in 1973. Like, that's just, it blows my mind to think that music like that was around at that time. And that has to be one of the. So sorry to go back to the album again, but it has to be. I'll say this point again. One of the earliest, like, examples of extreme music being used. I think you got Boris the Spider, the Who track, which I think had some early proto death growls in it, and Mike Oldfield, you know the album Tubular Bells?
Of course, Exorcist. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was, I can't remember if it was part 1 or 2, but one of the parts had like death metal vocals in it as well.
I didn't realize
and it's
that.
super, super jarring. I'll play it for you guys after this because
Cool.
it sounds really
That was what,
hilarious.
50s? Late 50s?
Tubular Bells would have been, I don't know,
Let me have
maybe
a Google.
70s, 60s as well.
I thought it was old.
I mean, well,
Because that's like Tubular Bell. Blah, 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 blah.
Mike Oldfield's still kicking about, I think.
Oh, it was 73. I was 20. That was like a good few years out.
Well, that's the thing.
That's the same year as this album.
Well, that's the crazy thing. So 73, I remember watching the videos, like the origins of like the death growl. It was like a Vice or a Loudwire video.
A National Geographic show.
Yeah, and it was one of the earliest moments they mentioned was, as I said, the Boris the Spider track by The Who, and that Mike Oldfield, the Tubular Bells track. So I reckon this should be added to that list.
I think it should, and I don't know if this came out before.
Yeah, we'll have to
those-
fact check that shit. I'll call Snopes.
Oh, hell.
Actually, no, Snopes have been discredited now. I'll call the other ones.
Oh, have they really?
I can't remember what it was, but I think Snopes was compromised by something, so they're no longer a reputable fact checker.
Snopes has been
Yes,
compromised.
be compromised.
It sounds like something I'd hear on like Call of Duty.
Frag out.
I mean, Snopes was recommended to me by like a freaking conspiracy theorist anti-vaxxer. So I was like, really? I don't know. I'm glad.
Oh.
I don't know anything about Snopes, but
I think Snopes actively tried to discredit a lot of anti-vax theories.
that's the thing. That's what I heard about them. But maybe this guy was like, oh, because Snopes are legit, then, you know, you can see I'm giving you legit information about aliens. So I don't know. It was.
I mean, is there legit information about aliens?
I'm here, aren't I? I don't
Could
know.
be. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. That Roswell autopsy footage looked pretty real to me.
Roswell Autopsy, new death metal band forming in 10, 9.
That's just the new Blood Incantation album.
It's true. That's a good name for an album. We should just have like a little hat, and like bands can give us like £1, and we'll just like pull a name out and give them the band name that we've just like randomly
Be like a
fired out.
random band generator. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Oh yeah, you could just go. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever do that? There's a
did.
website, and then I got a really shit name, and I never. It was something like Divine Pain or something shit like that.
Almost certainly as a band now. Though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Divine's a common.
It's like Spectral Divine.
Yeah, spectral.
That's my stage name.
I'm just going to create a band with all the prefixes of just every popular band. So it'd be like Morbid, Spectral,
Devourment.
Divine, and then just, yeah.
Spectral Devourment would be a good name for a band.
That is actually a good name.
Yeah.
Can we edit that out so I can steal that, please?
Bloop.
No.
Yeah.
But anyway, Igorrr, Savage Sinusoid, great album. Love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's fucking sick. There's harpsichord, there's organ, there's clarinets, there's accordions, there's calliopes, there's computers, there's a chicken man.
There's a sitar at one point as well.
There is a sitar.
Yeah.
There is a sitar. It's fantastic. It's really interesting. I think it really complements the Magma album as well. It's like kind of a bit of French history there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shall we move on
Let's move on
to something not at all French?
No.
No. Darkthrone, Eternal Hails. Sounds like a meme. I thought it was a joke when I heard it was called Eternal Hails.
Eternal Hails is like, you know, when you get those boomer 80s thrash bands that does like a post on Facebook.
And they end
So
the
like, we'll
post.
see you out on the road. Eternal Hails.
Eternal Hails.
Yeah.
It's got like a slash and an M and another slash.
yeah.
Yeah.
Spelled brutal with 2 zeros and
Brutal. Yeah.
yeah. So what do you think of? So if I'm not mistaken, you haven't forayed too much into Darkthrone, have you?
I never actually have listened to Darkthrone until this album, because when I did listen to black metal, I thought I was too cool to listen to Darkthrone,
Yeah.
which is pathetic, by the way. And I'm calling myself out on that. But yeah, I listened to like 5 minutes of Transylvanian Hunger the other day, and I was like, I can't listen to this.
Yeah,
It's just it just sounds like being on the Northern Line between Camden Town and East Finchley.
so oddly specific, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right?
Because I've also made that journey, yeah.
It's just as jarring. It wasn't my thing, but I do love Fenris. He's my favorite part-time postman.
Yeah, he's great.
He's a
Postman
cool guy.
Fen.
Postman man. I've just seen a lot of memes of him, and he seems like a funny guy, and he was cool in Until the Light Takes Us. I haven't seen it in like 10 years, so if he says anything problematic, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean it. But he just seems like one of the guys that's not racist, so I thought I'd check him out.
Fenris is super cool, and the thing is, what I love about Fenris as well is you could tell he's such a passionate music fan. He'd done this great, I can't remember if it was a podcast, there's a radio show actually.
It's called Radio Fenris, right?
Yeah. And it's, and he just always given, time to these up and coming like Scandinavian, or not just Scandinavian extreme metal bands, but just loads of bands, and the interesting thing about Darkthrone as a band as well is, their name is synonymous with the extreme metal scene, much in the same way, Celtic Frost, Bathory, Venom, like Darkthrone are up there. And, and like the analogy I've kind of come up for them is they are like the Undertaker, as in the WWE wrestler, the Undertaker, Mark Calloway, of the extreme metal scene. And what I mean by that is they've reinvented themselves so many times to kind of stay relevant or to maintain relevancy that that's what's allowed them to have such a long-spanning career. Because this is like, their 19th album? Mm-hmm. And they've been going since the fucking late 80s, if you're counting their demos and shit. And, much in the same way that The Undertaker did. So I'm going to bring this back to WWE somewhere. Like, that's what he did. He reinvented his gimmick so many times to kind of to keep relevant in the wrestling world. And I feel like Darkthrone are doing something very similar because, they have, when you listen to their entire discography, it's just like, it's very genre spanning. The first album, Soulside Journey, is basically a death metal album, right? It's like Dismember Worship. And then you've got, obviously, the trifecta of the black metal albums. You've got some albums that are basically crust punk albums, some just complete straight-up trad albums. Like, what's the trad album again? I made a note of it because I knew I'd fucking not remember everything. I'll come back to it later.
It's not Transylvanian Hunger.
It's 100% not Transylvanian Hunger. I can guarantee that.
That's the only Darkthrone album I know apart from this.
But it's this album here, I feel like they've started to incorporate some kind of like Candlemassy, even some Sabbathy kind of like doom elements, and we were talking a little bit about the production off camera. This is some of the most subdued production they've ever had on an album, I think.
Subdued is a word.
Yeah.
To describe it, yeah.
Because a lot of their albums, as you said, Transylvanian Hunger, those three black metal albums are quite abrasive to listen to, which is part of their charm. Like they are the archetypal, rough production black metal albums. But like there's so much more to Darkthrone as a band and an entity. And I think that this is just yet another step in that kind of continuation. The thing is, you could always tell when you listen to their albums that they make the music that they want to make.
Yeah.
Whatever that is at the time, whether it's crust punk, whether it's traditional heavy metal, or whether it's something more doom metal orientated like this album.
I got like a big black and roll vibe from this.
Totally.
I don't know much about black and roll, but I first listened to it through my phone speakers. Because I didn't have any internet on my laptop.
So to give it the Transylvanian Hunger experience.
And I through my phone speakers, I was like, this is great. It's like Motorheady. It's kind of like, it's got like a good groove. And then I listened to it on a computer and it sounded like my computer speakers had broken. I had to check that they hadn't blown. And it was like kind of confusing. I think this sounds great on a phone speaker. This is like a really good thing to put on if you're like having a picnic by the river with your friends. You got some good pizza and sandwiches and you have like no speakers, so you put something on your phone. This is great. I feel like Fenris is having fun. I feel like he's probably smiling when he's like recording this stuff, and that kind of makes it cool. I like that he's not taking it super seriously. I don't want all music to sound like this, absolutely not. I wouldn't like that. But I think that this is kind of like an antidote to, it's like a good thing to listen to after other bands, if that makes sense. And it's good to listen to before listening to other bands. But at the same time, when I'm listening to it, I can kind of, my brain, I feel like I'm listening to the first draft of a demo at times. And my brain, maybe that's just because I'm like that kind of person who writes music. I just keep wanting to rewrite bits of the album. I keep wanting to like remix it and like put something here and I feel like there's stuff missing when I listen to it. But at the same time, it's fascinating because I do feel like it's very raw. It's something I wouldn't normally listen to.
Yeah, I think you've hit a lot of nails on the head there. I've just cheated and looked up Encyclopedia Metallum. So it's The Underground Resistance was the first like trad, pretty much just a trad album. But no, the thing is, one of the hallmarks of their sound, despite the fact that a lot of their albums sound different, is they've always employed quite simple songwriting.
It's so simple.
It's very simple, but it's effective. Sometimes things don't need to be like wormed all the time. I'll give a shout out to the Spanish brutal technical death metal band there. But and it works for me. Like, do I think this is their strongest album? No, but I do think it's a worthy addition to their discography.
Yeah.
And I think, for you in particular, it would be worthwhile checking out just a few of the albums just to see what you think.
I want to listen to the 2019 one. That was like a more doomy album, right?
Oh, Old Star was great. Yeah, that was a great album. It had a song in it called "The Hardship of the Scots," which is just a great track. It's a really good track. The production, I think you'll really dig the production on that album.
Okay, I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah, that's a really good track. They've written some great riffs, like. Much in the same way, like a band like, say, I'll say Primordial, for example. Like, they're not trying to write the most groundbreaking music, but they write with the right sincere intentions, and it comes across in the music. And much in the same, like to add to your point, you could tell that they're having fun. They're performing and they're writing the music that they want to, and that's what it's always been about for them. Which is why, because that they've never played live, or they played maybe. I think there's some footage of a couple of live shows, like way back when. But like they're not a live band; it's purely a musical project, and I think it's it's bore out of that obsession and that desire to write and play the music they want to play.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can respect that. I really like that Fenriz is a postman, so he can listen to music, and I like that he's not embarrassed. I think a lot of people want to like preserve some kind of like atmospheric kind of shamanic kind of thing. Whereas Fenriz is like, I like doing the post, a few days a week and listening to new music and checking it out. I think that's really wholesome.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what a lot of us kind of want to some extent, is a relatively simple life where we could enjoy the things we want to enjoy.
Yeah.
While doing a job that isn't too demanding or stressful. Because let's be honest, I mean, there's a bit of a tangent here. The most aspects of a job that are stressful are the political and bureaucratic ones, as opposed to the actual elements of the job itself, right? So I kind of feel like a post. Sometimes I think to myself, it'd be great to be a postman. It's just, I just wouldn't have thought there'd be that much bullshit involved in it. And you get to meet a lot of dogs as well, which would be super cool.
Some of them might not be so nice though.
That's true.
Yeah, I don't know. You'd have to have like some kind of dog management system.
You've seen there's a great compilation video on YouTube of UPS drivers in the States doing their routes or routes.
Routing.
Apologies to any American listeners out there. I'm not making fun of your pronunciation of certain words. I mean, I am. But it's... But no, and you get to see them like meeting all their dogs on the journey. It's just really wholesome. I just fucking love animals. That's the point I'm making. I love dogs.
You do, yeah.
And
I
frogs, dogs and frogs.
You might see frogs depending on where you are.
That'd be cool.
If you're posting. I do like that aspect. I just imagine Fenriz walking around like Scandinavian countryside delivering mail to like cool looking houses and churches and stuff.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Move to Scandinavia, become a postman, join a black metal one-man project band. I guess you can't join a one-man project band. That'd be pretty weird. But this is a two-man project band. It's got Nocturno.
Yeah, Nocturno Culto. So he's his long-time collaborator. So he does the bulk of the vocals. And I like his vocal style. It's obviously adapted over the years. Like you've got the more screechier stuff on the black metal albums. But it's always got that kind of envenomed snarl to it, which I just like. It's a simple vocal style and technique. And it works well for the music, and it works well in spanning the different albums that they've done over the years. Yeah,
I really like that. I just, I liked, so the first track of the album, I really liked it. It kind of reminded me of Carving a Giant by Igorrr, which I say whenever any form of black metal is nice to me.
I mean, that is one of the best black metal riffs out there.
It's
just for the record,
great.
That's a damn good track.
Shem dropping a fidget spinner. But the thing I actually really like about that track also is the way the vocals interplay with the music, and it's the same with his master's voice. But the thing that confuses me about this track is that HMV, the brand and chain of shops, is short for his master's voice.
Yeah.
And I was like, is Fenriz making some kind of subtextual reference to HMV here? Do they have HMV in Scandinavia? Is he like aware of this? Because it sounds really cool, but then at the same time, I just got that HMV logo in my head the whole time when I'm listening to this track.
With the dog listening to the
I
gramophone.
know. Maybe it's some kind of like low-key postal dog HMV.
Well, it is. I don't know the reasoning behind why HMV originally called
His master's
their brand
voice.
named that in the first place. So
I think it's something to do with like, didn't the owner have a dog and he had like a gramophone and the dog was like entranced by it, and it was like he played the voice of the owner through the gramophone. The dog's like, oh, I should sit. I don't know.
Well, that's pretty cool. I never knew that. But,
I might be making it up. That's just I literally found, I was moving house and I found like a 30-year-old vinyl player in the attic, and it was an HMV one, and it's got like the picture of the dog looking into the gramophone, like cocking its head.
Yeah.
So I thought that was
It's cool.
yeah.
Well, even if that's not the case, that's what I'm going to take as fact from now on. That story.
Same. It's canon now. Or head canon, whatever the fucking term is.
There's one track I really liked called "The Lost Arcane City of Upakra."
Yeah, that was a cool track.
Yeah.
Is that the last one?
That is
The second to last
track.
This track is really cool because of the lyrics, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was just super cool. And I mean, I'm presuming you've done a bit of research on the city and stuff.
I didn't do the research on the city, but I did Google Translate the last verse.
Oh, I didn't do that. So what was the Google Translate saying on
So,
the last verse?
I think, what is it sung in? Is it Swedish? Am I like...
They're Norwegian.
No, they're Norse. Okay. I can't believe I thought it was Swedish. I'm just used to the little bubbles meaning Swedish. But it translates, like the track is about them being like, fuck Christ, like don't come over here and convert us and like ruin our culture. But the last track is in the native language. So it's like, haha, you didn't get us. And they're saying grain and water, meat and bones, marshes keep the soul pure. Freedom strengthens the glistening hill. We must never reach Christ. But it could just be shitty Google Translate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, Google Translate seems to be pretty spot on. They never make any mistakes, do they?
Not once.
No. But, so an interesting fact is that there's a church in this city, a Christian church built on top of an old medieval one. So I think there's quite a lot of that in Scandinavia. I think I'm not too well versed in
It's
that
common
lore,
in many countries with churches. They're usually built on old holy sites to like for syncretic reasons to make people just go back to the holy site and then be like, oh fuck, I'll just say Christ, but I'm here in my old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty fucked when you think about it, right?
Yeah, it's pretty fucked.
It's maybe that was one of the reasons behind the whole church burn-ins and stuff
Mayhaps.
Amongst other strange going-ons around about that time.
There are church burnings currently happening in Canada for different reasons right now.
Is that to do with the First Nation citizens and stuff?
Indeed.
That's some wild shit, man. That is some really brutal.
Fucking.
It's funny because, sorry to interrupt, but like you people often talk about the indigenous like massacres and genocides in the States, but like in Canada, it's just as bad, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's horrific. Like there are some really fascinating documentaries on it that you can watch, and I can't remember what the term is, but it's like a hole. It's like a hole in the history of American Indians and things like that. And yeah, it's like systematic genocide, like cleansing of culture, like erasing people's identities and the things that people had to experience, the trauma that's like unspoken is like it's so disgusting. So I'm completely behind the people who are like, you know, protesting by burning churches, and because, you know, at the end of the day, like if you just go and stand in the street and hold a sign, no one's going to do anything. We're just told that's the way we're supposed to protest because nothing changes when we do it that way.
And now we can't even do that making noise anymore, apparently.
Yeah, you can't even just be silent anymore in this country if
Crazy.
you're protesting. Yeah.
Crazy times.
Sure is. But anyway, speaking of protesting, I do know that Fenriz turned down an award because he didn't want to be playing into the glitz and glamour of show business, because he got an award for Sardonic something or other. So Sardonic Verses, is it the album? I literally pulled out of my notes because I'm a genius.
Sardonic Wrath. I had it in my head. I should have went with my gut, because I was thinking, I'm going to look like an idiot if I say it and it's wrong, but I'm like, fuck it, I should just went with my gut.
I'm the idiot. I look like the idiot because I'm making the mistakes. I'm letting you correct me. So you look great and I don't, which is good because that's just how it's going, and that's cool. But I like that they did that. It was a Norwegian Alarm Award or an NAA, for Sardonic Wrath. Sorry, that was just fun. Nah. Sorry. Yeah, they had no interest in being on that side of the music industry, which is like, I think I wouldn't do that. I think I'd take the award and be like, fuck yeah. So respect to Fenris for being that, like, having that much integrity.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a very Fenris thing to do. I mean, he's such a proponent for the underground scene. But funnily enough, Satyricon, which actually Nocturnal Culton played bass on a few Satyricon albums, they performed at the Norwegian Grammys once.
No way.
Black Crow and the Tombstone. I think it was that track anyway.
I actually know that track. That's catchy as hell.
Yeah, that's a really good. Yeah, that was. Yeah, Satyricon done a great job of kind of transitioning into a really kind of commercially viable black and roll style, and they got a lot of shit for it. But I actually really dig that stuff. I think it sounds super cool. You know, two types of music. You get good music, you get bad music. You know what I mean?
You're gonna get shit for anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But especially in the black metal scene. But no, yeah, so they performed it live at the Norwegian Grammys, and I thought that was pretty, like, I remember my mind being a little bit blown by that, because it's just always so weird to see, like, hard-hitting music represented in any form in any of those sort of music ceremonies. Like, everyone's like, it always, I tell you what always baffles me, how people get really pissed off when metal is snubbed at the Grammys. It's just like anyone gives a shit about the Grammys anyway. Like there's any real music or artistic merit in it. Like, does it really matter that metal isn't represented there? It'd
be nice to get one, but it's like really not that big a deal at the same time. It was. Did you see the video of when High on Fire got it, and there was like no one in the room, because they do all that stuff before all the celebrities turn up.
Oh, okay. Was it? Yeah, because they've got all those awards for yeah. Like the pre televised crowd awards, right? Yeah.
I was still happy for that High on Fire got one, because it was cool that they got recognized in that way. But at the same time, it was really sad to see like 5 people in this like huge room that like all the celebrities would be sitting in like a few hours later. But hey.
Yeah, and you know, on a similar note, I tell you what's another great way of recognition? Like fucking allowing the bands to make some money. Look at you, Spotify, you
Can
motherfuckers.
you imagine?
But,
imagine like record deals that favored the bands.
Maybe I should edit out that Spotify bits on Spotify.
Oh yeah, shit.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, there's people, they can't make a fucking living off this industry. It's very hard, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you guys have done. You're managed very well, though. I feel like
we have great management. I've got to say, we have an incredible manager.
Which does help, right? I feel like to kind of make it in the scene, you've got to have the kind of the business smarts, right?
Yeah. You have to be organized, and you've got to like. First off, like finding an external manager that's good is fucking difficult. I think there's like 1 or 2 people I would ever allow to manage this band, apart from me, because I guess I'm that kind of a freak. But you've got it in. Like, I enjoy admin, I enjoy managing, so I don't think that's common in a band, and I think that that can be difficult for people who don't like doing that stuff, who don't like making spreadsheets and researching things and contacting people and getting rejected. Like, I fucking thrive on that shit. I love being ignored. Ignore me, reject me, I'll come back. But that's the kind of shit you have to go through. It's like that horrible J.K. Rowling submitting to like 100 different publishers before her trash book got published. So like, it's the same with your band. You got to just do a Harry Potter and not be a TERF, and it will work out probably eventually if you just keep hammering at it. Yeah. That's
an impressive way to segue to fucking crowbar J.K. Rowling into that.
Sorry, J.K. Well, I'm not sorry. Sorry, Warner Brothers? I don't know. But yeah, what was I saying? What was I talking about? Management.
Band management.
Why were we talking about that?
Don't know.
Oh, getting money. Yeah. Self-managing is a fantastic way to get money as a band. And also having like clear boundaries of money and investment structures and like how you're going to divide returns and stuff. It's easy for me. It's pretty much all my money. So I keep most of it and then put most of it actually just back into the band anyway. Yeah, and then like, that's just less drama that way. It's easier. Yeah.
But great advice. And also back to Darkthrone, Eternal Hails.
Darkthrone.
Yeah, so the last track was my favourite track of the album. It's got some really cool kind of like spacey synths towards the end that kind of complement the kind of more melodic break of the latter part of that track. That kind of reminds me a bit of kind of like Latter Day Enslaved as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, Country Mates. But yeah, it's just, there's some great riffs on this album. You know, like I said, it's not my favourite Darkthrone album of all time, but it's got a lot of the hallmarks of what makes this project so good is definitely present on this album. Like, simple but effective songwriting, and just you could just tell that, just like I've said before, that they're just enjoying playing this music, and they're just writing whatever the fuck they want to. Just so happens this time around they want to write something a bit more doomier, and who knows, next album will probably be different, and we shall see. But I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it too. I like that they're not constrained by the expectations of people around them, which I can imagine at times can be very like high, and that's a lot of pressure to deal with when you're already that much of like a meme. I mean, I hope he just has an eternity of great Fridays.
Yeah, it's funny though, because that's why a lot of metal fans could be quite fickle sometimes. Like you take a band like a bit of a curveball here. Take a band like Suicide Silence, the deathcore band. Like they released something that was more akin to a new metal album. You remember that whole thing, Shem, with the whole
like Morbid
Doris
Angel
was one of the tracks, I think. But don't even get me started on Morbid Angel and that album. That album is fucking terrible. Fucking I Am Morbid. Oh my god. Radical was the other track that was.
Radical.
Oh wow.
Killer Cult.
God.
Yeah.
So that Suicide Silence album was like had a lot of new metal influences and elements to it, and like the backlash and ridicule was monumental, to the point that the next album they just stopped playing deathcore again. So I think it just shows that, you know, the fickleness of certain fandoms is enough to steer a band to a sound that they don't want to explore. And I think that's quite a shitty thing, which is why it's good that you've got a band like Darkthrone, for example. Like you said, they're just writing whatever the fuck they want to. They don't care about the fact that they've got 3 legendary black metal albums. You know, that's not the music they want to write anymore.
Yeah.
And, you know, it might turn off a segment of their fans, but at the end of the day, I think in the long run, people will appreciate an artist for doing something that they want to do, because it just sounds that much more sincere at the end of the day.
I think I'm going to watch Until the Light Takes Us again after this.
I've never seen it. Is that the one with that's the one with what's his name, Garl and the whole Satan thing, right?
Thing. I think so. Oh my god, we should do like a Floyd reaction video episode.
God. You should have done a Floyd reaction video to fucking I've forgotten the name of the film because I've erased it from my head.
Chaos, Lords of Chaos.
Lords of Chaos.
We should do like a group reaction video. Yeah. It's just us screaming.
I just stood up about halfway through and I was just like, I've had enough of this shit. It's like so bad.
I watched like 20 minutes, the bit where he like was like, is that a Scorpions patch? And he like rips it. I was like, what the fuck this is so lame. And he's like they're like looking in mirrors being like, teenage, what are you doing? What are you pointing? Oh, Scorpion. Is that a Scorpions patch? And he's just like, no. And he just like comes back and he's like, it's just well, they're sitting in like KFC and like chewing each other out. It's like the dumbest.
Oh fuck! I mean, it's just. I think the whole. On a more serious note, is why they did not handle the whole dead suicide thing tastefully at all. As well,
it was like goofy the way they handled it. Yeah. Well, to be fair, the suicide note he left was goofy. Wasn't he like, sorry, I ruined your
something? Yeah.
Yeah, he was like, sorry, I didn't ask to borrow the gun and ruined your carpet. I can't remember what it was, but it was like there was like a dark humor to the suicide note. Yeah. I think that is legit as well, I think. But, you know, that story's never interested me as it has a lot of other fans, because I always thought it was all just a bit fucking stupid, to be honest. It's like, I thought it was really distasteful. I get why when you're a teenager you think that's cool, but it's like, yeah, taking the picture and like the shards of the skull. Didn't like one of the shards sell on eBay for like £1,200?
Well, I think it's hotly contested that the shards thing even existed in the first place.
Oh yeah.
Like I think it was just random. Some people have said it's just random chicken bones that
it probably is.
Which probably, I mean, you know.
Yeah, because I think the skull. Like first off, I don't want to talk about this, but it would be very difficult to like, you know, drill through bone. Also, it's really bad for you.
Yeah, and I'm not being funny. Looking at pictures of Euronymous, I mean, he didn't look like the most well-built.
Isn't he dummy thick?
No, that was edited.
Oh, was it actually edited?
Yeah, that was an edited photo to make him look thicker. No, he wasn't. He wasn't dummy thick. That was someone that edited it for some reason.
For real, I was like, every time I see his like Kardashian booty, I'm like, damn, what he doing? How did he do that?
Damn, she got that Euronymous booty. But no, he was pretty weedy. So I don't think he would have. But fuck, what a clusterfuck that whole situation was. This whole time,
I thought Euronymous was just this like hunky babe.
Yeah. Nah, not at all. Nah.
That's so funny. I just thought he looked like that.
I was actually like, how did he buy jeans in the 90s that fit?
Yeah, no, that's edited.
It doesn't look edited. Man, I'd be so easily catfished if I was a guy.
But it's the shitty little feather duster mustache
wearing a
that
little
does
crop
it as well.
top.
But
That is so
anyway,
cute.
I'm not going to rag with him too much because he's dead. But I mean,
yeah.
whatever the fuck. I mean, but it's funny because you got acts like Enslaved, Immortal, and Darkthrone, who are all Norwegian bands that kind of just didn't get involved in any of that. And look where it's got them. They've got glittering careers.
Yeah.
They're revered. And obviously, Abba has had his issues recently with
He's just like the
substance
goofy
abuse.
uncle of black metal.
Yeah, and his interviews are the best.
Oh, he's so great.
Yeah,
Maybe we should interview him at some point.
that would be wild.
Yeah.
Just to make sure he takes like a giant like speedball before. Well, not make sure because that sounds like we're coercing him into taking drugs, but not like he needs much coercing. But
I'm loving watching you try to dig yourself out of this hole.
oh, I
It's
know
great.
it's just so bad. But I'm just gonna stop and say that interview he done with, I think it was Sam Dunn.
It was for Headbanger TV.
That was a
yeah.
hilarious one, man.
Oh,
just
God.
the
Iconic.
just the bit where he just goes living on the edge. It just cracked me up.
I think this is the point where we get really hot and ramble.
Yeah, so I think this is a good time to call it a day.
I think so. I think anyone who's watching or listening, if you've got this far, mad respect, 10 out of 10. You've done a great job. Thank you for bearing with us. Feel free to recommend any albums that we should listen to. Maybe we should start reviewing some films as well. We should maybe look at some documentaries and things.
Oh, that'd be a good idea. Yeah,
It'd be pretty fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, like shove us some recommendations. We're going to check out whatever you like. I found White Ward through this method of YouTube commenters.
I
so
fucking love White Ward, by the way.
they're great.
They dropped a new track recently. I need to listen to it. But
Exciting. And also that new Spectral Law single dropped. Was it
Mistras was like a
Mistras.
side project, sort of, that was really chaotic. Really reminded me of a Canadian group called Cephalectomy. If you've
Oh,
ever
that's a
heard
cool
of them.
name. Yeah.
They've got like really poorly produced electronic drums, but the music is fucking wild.
Nice.
I'll let you listen to it at some point.
Thank you for allowing me that.
I'll allow you to listen to it, all right? I've been gatekeeping this band for years, all
The way
right?
you said it was so funny.
Yeah.
I like that.
I'll permit it.
I will allow it. Yeah, no, this new Mistress track is, I can't fucking say it. It's really good. It's like it's really chaotic. It's actually quite difficult to listen to, but I enjoyed that. It's got a cool logo, cool cover. And there's like, I feel like, I'm not sure if this is the case, but it feels like they do like an Eastern scale and a Western scale at the same time in the track. And they're both like playing slightly different things, and it just sounds really weird and unusual.
Yeah, it's I've got to listen to it again, but it's yeah, that's definitely one we'll keep an eye on, I think.
I think so. We may be reviewing a full album of that band soon. But anyway, thank you so much for listening and watching. Please like and subscribe. Feel free to throw us some support, and we'll see you soon.
Until next time.
Bye bye.